such as the U.S. Steel Corporation, the Steel Trust. The AFL-CIO's insistence on craft structure, support for the capitalist system, and exclusion of the unskilled was seen by many to be contrary to workers' interests. In 1905, my union, the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, was formed. It was formed to unite all workers in each industry into a single union, capable of fighting the bosses on more equal terms and looking to supplant capitalism with a system of worker ownership and management of production and distribution. We say that workers, as the sole producers of wealth, should own what we create. Formed by union militants, socialists, and anarchists, we have always explicitly opposed capitalism and have operated in a radically open and democratic manner based on solidarity and the understanding that all workers share a common interest. We engaged in titanic struggles and won some huge victories, most notably the Lawrence, Mass. Textile strike, which began 100 years ago this month. Actually, the day after tomorrow will be the 100th anniversary of the Lawrence strike. And in this strike, 25,000 employees of the Woolen Trust, many unskilled women, children, and immigrant workers, held to be unorganizable by the AFL, people who work long hours and dangerous, in dangerous conditions for starvation wages. They won all their demands, staying out 3 months in bitter winter weather and in the face of police and National Guard brutality, mass arrests, attempted bomb frame-ups, and the rest. Their victory led to 250,000 mill workers across New England and the rest of the country receiving immediate substantial pay raises. And in a short time, the institution of workman's comp, restricted hours for women and children, a rolling back of the Dickensian conditions that had prevailed until then. This was a direct result of the IWW's victory in Lawrence. The IWW won other victories in McKees Rock, Pennsylvania, in the Press Steel Car Company strike of 1909, when we were the only union to defeat the Steel Trust until the formation of the United Steelworkers around 1940, in organizing migratory agricultural workers and substantially improving pay and conditions, organizing timber workers and winning the 8-hour day, organizing metal miners, marine transport workers, oil field workers, and much more. And we're still in the field today organizing retail and food service workers in such places as Starbucks. And there were other notable victories in the period between the turn of the 20th century and the First World War, such as the success of the garment workers in New York City, Chicago, and Boston. Through the International Ladies Garment Workers Union and the Amalgamated Clothing Workers. Successes of coal miners organizing the United Mine Workers took place during this period. The beginnings of organizing in auto plants and meatpacking. Briefly, the 1920s was a bad time for unions with the open shop system
Hold this for a second. I need to check something.
Union organization. But with the onset of the Great Depression following the stock market crash in 1929, things were miserable for some time. Unemployment was on the order of 1/3 of all workers. There was a general economic collapse, widespread misery. This changed dramatically around 1934 with great victories in the Toledo, Ohio auto light strike, the Minneapolis Teamster strike, the San Francisco General Strike, which resulted in the creation of the International Longshoremen's and Warehousemen's Union, the West Coast Longshoremen. Still a very militant union. At this time, a group of AFL unionists, with the United Mine Workers in the lead, proposed breaking with the craft structure of the AFL and instituting industrial organizing. They split from the AFL and organized the CIO, the Congress of Industrial Organization. In a series of dramatic organizing campaigns marked by sit-down strikes and mass picketing, the CIO succeeded in organizing the country's basic industries: auto, rubber, steel, electric, northern textiles. Between the CIO and the reviving AFL, about one-half of America's workers were soon in unions. With the big advances in pay, conditions, hours, pensions, and job security to be expected. Further, in response to this exercise of workers' power, the government ceded the right to organize, unemployment compensation, health and safety laws, social security. These things were the direct result of the workers organizing in the workshops. At the same time, the pernicious system of the National Labor Relations Act was established, which encouraged hierarchy and bureaucracy in unions, made unions dependent on the procedures of the National Labor Relations Board rather than on their members' strength, and enmeshed the unions in structures that sapped the fighting spirit of workers. This was accompanied after the Second World War by an immense Red Scare, which promoted the idea that socialism is equivalent to treason and which expelled militants from the unions. By the time that the AFL and the CIO merged in 1955, communists and other militants had been purged from leadership positions, and many rank-and-file militants had bent pushed out altogether. Workplace managers had acted to break up work groups, which had supported militancy, and the generation that had participated in the great upheavals of the 1930s was aging and passing into retirement. Most union officers were happy with this situation, as they preferred a system in which authority flows from the top down and in which the rank and file remain passive. Furthermore, under the presidencies of George Meany and Lane Kirkland in the 1950s through the 1970s, the AFL-CIO severed its links to progressives in this country and allowed itself to be used as a pawn in the service of the U.S. government's imperial designs. It actively undercut real unions in Europe, Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and attempted to replace them with collaborationist unions similar to their own. It acted as a conduit for CIA funding. This is one of the greatest blots on the history of the labor movement in this country. The stage was now set for what's been going on since Ronald Reagan became the president of the U.S. in 1981. In one of its first acts, the Reagan administration provoked the air traffic controllers at the airports to strike and responded by firing them all and replacing them with scabs. The union of the air traffic controllers was called PATCO, the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization. The AFL-CIO's response to this attack was to do nothing at all, absolutely nothing. Every day, members of the Airline Pilots Association, the Machinists Union, which I was a member of at the time, and the flight attendants, these are all unionized workers, every day they cross PATCO picket lines on their way to work at the airports. This was the signal for it being open season on unions. Okay, the fact that the AFL-CIO did absolutely nothing in the face of an attack on a labor union at the time, this was a signal to the capitalists and to other government institutions that it was fine to attack. It was fine to attack and to attempt to destroy labor unions. Unions Unions entering contract negotiations since that time have been met with demands for concessions and have not been effective in fighting these. In the relatively few instances of fightbacks, such as the P9 strike against Hormel in Austin, Minnesota, and the 3 strikes in Peoria at Caterpillar, Staley, and another place I don't remember the name of right now. The strikers went down to defeat, having been given virtually no outside help. They were up against huge corporations and did not have the muscle to win these battles. Things reached the point that there is now little union presence in the private, that is the capitalist sector. And the last bastion of union strength, the public sector workers' organizations, is now under heavy attack, as in Wisconsin and pretty much every place else. Take a look at the posturing buffoons angling for the Republican presidential nomination. And the Democrats are no better. In my state, Massachusetts, which has enormous Democrat majorities in both houses of the legislature and which has a Democrat governor, they passed a Wisconsin law. So the Democrats are no alternative to the Republicans. They take bribes from the same sources, and they answer to the same ruling class. Okay, so this brings us to the present. Since the Occupy Wall Street movement started this past summer, there is a new atmosphere abroad. Working people are no longer willing to take it on the chin uncomplainingly. The fight back has begun, and we can confidently look forward to much more of it. A call has been put out for a general strike this coming May Day, shades of 1886. It has been endorsed by my union, the IWW, as well as Occupy Boston and many other organizations. I call on everyone here to lend a hand. We have a lot of lost ground to make up, but we have a great history of struggle to inspire us. Okay, thank you.
Woo!